In 1940, theatrical wunderkind Orson Welles was given carte blanche to make his first Hollywood feature. To pen the script, he recruited complex screenwriter Herman Mankiewicz, recovering from a broken leg. Mankiewicz signs a contract to relinquish complete screenwriting credit to Welles, but as he writes this magnum opus, he starts to realize it's his masterpiece. Now he's reluctant to give it to Welles, who has made it clear he considers it to be entirely an Orson Welles picture. The movie was Citizen Kane, and the film about Herman Mankiewicz struggling to pen his greatest work is Mank. I'm Connor Eyzaguirre,
I'm Colton Jenkins.
and this is Filmgazm. Welcome to the Filmgazm podcast. Our brief foray into movies about movies, REELGAZM, continues with one of the most fascinating tales of power and influence ever to come out of Hollywood, Mank, the story of screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz and the events of his life that led to the creation of Citizen Kane, one of the most renowned American motion pictures ever made. If that's the story you believe. The other camp is Orson Welles wrote this entirely and farmed out some scenes to Mankiewicz. The two never saw eye to eye over ownership of this film, and it's kind of become Hollywood legend. No one really knows the true story, and there's truth on both sides of this. So my question to you, pretty easy, or well, easy to ask, not necessarily easy to answer, but I think it's worth talking about. Why do you think Citizen Kane is widely considered the greatest film of all time by critics and film historians alike?
Well, I mean, so we watched the movie together. That was my first time watching it. I've heard about it. I think everyone who is like a film buff, they've heard of Citizen Kane or seen it. I have not seen it. We watched it together, and I mean, you saw how I reacted to it. The way that it was filmed was absolutely groundbreaking at the time. The dialogue, the fact that they sometimes talk over each other, they talk like real people, the angles that are used. There's a lot of scenes where, you know, the actors' faces aren't lit. It's not like a play. It's like it's weirdly not even like a movie. It weirdly seemed like I was watching, I don't know. It seemed like I was watching someone's memory or like a dream because you never see their faces in dreams. And I think that's why. Because so I didn't necessarily enjoy the story of Citizen Kane. Like, I didn't find it like really like engaging. I didn't really care, but watching it was a lot of fun because it was a very well made movie and it changed the way movies are made. And like you said when we were watching it, you said Citizen Kane's DNA is in every movie now ever made. And I 100% can see that. And I think that's why it's considered one of the greatest movies of all time because it, I mean obviously is. If it's so influential, then it has to be one of the greats. And I think it is one of the greats because of how influential and groundbreaking and experimental it was for the time.
I agree, pretty wholeheartedly. Like to me, there's filmmaking before Citizen Kane, and then there's filmmaking after Citizen Kane, and it's a very clear divide.
Yeah.
People are now experimenting in ways that nobody had ever done before. Orson Welles was 24 years old when he showed up in Hollywood and said, you know, started breaking doors down. It's like, there, I'm going to do things my way. And
Mm.
everyone was just kind of like, all right. Like he'd earned, I guess he'd earned that right. He'd conquered the stage, he'd conquered radio, and now he was here to take Hollywood. And he did. I mean, he was, one of the most powerful people in the business for quite some time. And he started with Citizen Kane. This was his first movie as an
That's
actor,
insane.
as a director, as a producer. This is the first thing he ever made in Hollywood.
Yeah.
After two failed productions that didn't make it off the ground.
Yeah. And say what you want about like, whose movie is, I mean, it's Orson Welles' movie, whether or
Yep.
not Mank should get credit or not. Um, the dialogue is wonderful. It is so well written. There's a lot of like mind-blowing lines in the movie. But the camera angles, the way it's shot, it's amazing, you know. The
Yeah.
blocking, like it even felt weird. It's common in movies today, but like the depth that they were filming at. Like there's a scene in Citizen Kane when young Kane is playing outside in the background, and you can see him through a window while his parents are talking to the guy that they give him away to. And that is commonplace today, but for some reason it just felt new, which is crazy because it's not new now, but it felt new watching it, and I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, Wells was experimenting with depth of field in an industry that was content to just point a camera in front of actors and just not move it at all.
Mhm.
But he was, digging trenches to like place his camera at an upward angle so that like his characters looked giant and
Yeah.
just trying shit out. And I love that. The filmmakers who dare to just try some shit are the guys who last forever. Nobody
Hmm.
remembers Joe Schmo, director number seven, who made some cowboy movie in 1938 on a weekend.
Yeah.
But no one's ever gonna forget Orson Welles.
No. Yeah. Not at all.
Fucking wild. It's so hard to not turn this into a combo episode on Citizen Kane and Mank.
It really is. Yeah.
Mank, you can't watch Mank without watching Citizen Kane. Like they're so tied together that it's not possible. So we wanted to provide some background info on Kane before we talk properly about Mank. So that's what the next few minutes are going to be is a little bit of Citizen Kane. But we're planning a little project that for next year where Kane will come up again.
Absolutely.
Um, so, following the War of the Worlds broadcast that Orson Welles did on the Mercury Theater on the air, do you know about that?
Yeah, people thought it was real, and I thought the world was really ending,
Yeah,
or aliens were invading.
bunch of dumb, hick, moron Americans thought that Orson Welles, noted theater actor, and a radio actor, was just casually talking about the massive alien invasion he was watching from the window of his office. And there were riots in the streets. A lot of people got hurt. Wells had to go on the radio and apologize for his thing. I was pissed about that. Like, no, I don't think he should apologize. If
No.
you listen to the beginning of this, where you're like, a dramatization of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, like, then you were like, oh, this sounds fun. If you flip through it in the middle and heard, Martian invaders are attacking the city, and you just didn't look outside, that's on you. I
Yeah.
I don't hold Orson Welles responsible for that in the slightest.
Yeah. No. Not a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that it happened. Like, what the hell? I imagine he was like astonished that people would be that stupid. He didn't seem like the kind of person to suffer fools at all.
Imagine that happens today. You get an Uber, your Uber driver is listening to a fucking like Dungeons and Dragons real play podcast, and they're like, "There's fucking what in town right now? There's dragons everywhere." You need to pull over right now.
Yeah. Or you just look out your window and not notice the dragons and realize, oh, okay, and then just keep
Yeah.
going. Amazing. But after that happened, Hollywood was like, we want this guy.
Hmm.
Like it put him in the news. People started remembering the name Orson Welles. So he was lured to Hollywood with one of the greatest contracts anybody ever got out of Hollywood at that time. RKO Pictures offered him everything. Basically, they said like, we want you for a two-picture deal. You will have complete and absolute artistic freedom to make whatever you want, including final cut approval. No actor ever got final cut approval. That was
Holy
studio
shit.
only, but they gave it to Orson Welles. And you
It's
know
crazy.
what? I can't really figure out why. Like, what was it about this guy that was so special that RKO was willing to just, bend over backward and give this man whatever he wanted to be, like to get him into Hollywood?
I don't know. So I like obviously I've never listened to War of the Worlds. I've never even seen the many movies. Never seen him act on stage, but maybe they could just tell that he has an eye for storytelling. I mean, The more and more I do this podcast, the more I'm realizing you can tell a story just with cinematography and acting alone, and they really did with Citizen Kane. Like I said, my favorite part of the movie is that, and I never thought I would ever be saying my favorite part about a movie was the cinematography, and I'm so happy that I've grown enough to be able to say that. So I think that they could tell, you know.
I remember when Austin and I first started Oscar Sunday, we were hesitant to talk about the best film editing award because we didn't really know what that entailed. We were like, are we really qualified to talk about that? The more episodes we did, the more we fucking understood what good film editing is, and we were finally like, yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I like that. Yeah, growth is crucial to the human development, and especially when you're doing stuff like this. Like, if we were the same people we were when we first started, like in our first episodes, this would be fucking horrendous. Neither
Yeah.
of us know what the hell we're talking about.
It's a good
uh,
movie choice too. Like when all this growth is happening, just in the team of this podcast. Like Citizen Kane is about growth, granted in the wrong direction, but it is very funny.
yeah, yeah, we got our own personal Xanadu here. Nice. Uh, so RKO Picture Studio had George J. Schaefer. He was the guy who wanted to work with Wells after the broadcast because he felt Wells had a gift for attracting mass attention. He was like, people are going to listen to this voice. And they were
Mm.
right. People listened too much and, got in a lot of accidents. I still can't believe that. So RKO was really profitable at this time. They were a little bit more willing to take some risks. They were doing very well as a company, and they wanted artistically prestigious films. And Orson Welles was a very profitable theater producer, director, and actor who had done a lot of adaptations of Shakespeare that were very unique and were
Mm.
considered just some of the best, especially Julius Caesar. He would later do a film adaptation of Othello that I guess was very good. I don't know if that's the one with the blackface or the Olivier one. They might both have blackface. I haven't seen them because I don't want to watch that, but I will one day take one for the team. If I can sit through Song of the South, I can sit through anything.
No, man.
So Wells was reluctant to go to Hollywood. He was kind of like, kind of saw through the bullshit. It wasn't about art for a lot of people. It was about money. It was about power. And he was at the beginning about art. And you can kind of, it's weird because you can see the same desire to do the right thing that would get lost in the translation. You can see that in Kane and you can see that in Wells at the same time.
Yeah. So I think when we were watching Mank, I think I said I was like, oh, he's Mank obviously is about Mank. It's about the person who wrote Citizen Kane. And it's interesting because he's putting himself in the character of Citizen Kane while also writing, it's definitely a middle finger to Hearst.
Yes.
But also if you or like Orson Welles also put himself in Kane a lot.
Yeah. Well, in Orson's contribution to the screenplay, he very much saw himself in Kane. For example, I watched a documentary called The Battle Over Citizen Kane that was done for PBS in 1996, which I'm very glad I did because it provided a lot of background info on a lot of these guys. Uh, the scene at the beginning where Kane gets, taken away from his parents by this rich guy,
Mm.
the loss of his family, that wasn't Hearst. That happened to Orson Welles. Like
Oh shit.
he took that from his own life and put it into Kane. So Charles Foster Kane is a weird Frankenstein amalgamation of William Randolph Hearst and Orson Welles, and a little Herman Mankiewicz in there too. He's this,
Yeah.
ultimate just kind of pain magnet for these three titans of the 20th century.
Yeah. It's kind of yeah, because it's three different people from three different walks of life. And they all I was gonna say they all agree on what power can do to you, but I'm sure Hearst has different opinions on that.
True, true. So the reason Wells finally ended up going to Hollywood is he was in financial trouble after two of his plays, Five Kings and The Green Goddess, failed. He lost a lot of money on that.
Hmm.
And his plan was to spend 3 months in Hollywood, recoup his debts, and then go back to the theater. He arrived in 1939, got a tour of the studio RKO. He called it the greatest electric train set a boy ever had. He saw Hollywood as his fucking oyster, and he was here to feast.
Nice.
Which
And he
you don't
definitely
often get.
did.
A newcomer, some 24-year-old kid does not get the keys to the kingdom very often. So I can only imagine how excited he was.
I'm 24 years old right now. I I'm 24 years old. I'm depressed, don't know where my life is going, and I'm broke. Like Orson Welles, insane.
I'm 28 and all those things. So yeah, a little jealous of Orson Welles just being so ready for his entire life at 24.
Yeah,
Jesus, people grow up fast, man.
they do.
Welles finally signed that contract on August 21st. Stipulated Welles would act in, direct, produce, and write 2 films with complete control. The most controversial aspect of this was complete artistic control. RKO they had to approve both project stories, and the budget could not exceed $500,000. That was the deal.
Hmm.
Also, this is crazy. RKO executives would not be allowed to see any footage of these films until Welles decided to show it to them, and they were not allowed to make any cuts without his approval. That's
Oh,
crazy. To tell the money people, like, no, you can't see what I'm making. You'll see it when I'm done.
holy shit, dude.
He was allowed to develop the story without interference. He selected his own cast and crew. He had the right of final cut. Like, it's crazy how they wanted him so much. And guess what? This contract made him a fucking pariah. The rest of Hollywood hated him because of that. They were like, who is this new outsider little childish prick getting more control over a movie than anyone in this industry has ever had?
Oh my dude.
Yeah, the Hollywood press mocked him at every turn. They were like telling RKO, "What the hell are you doing? Placing all your bets on this like Shakespearean nobody? Like what the hell's going on here?"
Imagine saying that and then he comes out with Citizen Kane.
Yeah, suddenly everyone was like, "Oh, okay, that's why." Um, so his original plan, Citizen Kane, was not his first idea. It was Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, the book that would eventually be adapted into the film Apocalypse Now. Uh, that he had done it for the radio. He wanted to do this through this is this blew my fucking mind. Welles wanted to film Heart of Darkness through a first person camera. He had the idea for a found footage film in 1940.
That's that's insane.
Yeah. And the studio was like,
What?
absolutely not. Who the hell would watch that?
I wonder what was the first found footage film? Was it Blair Witch Project?
I think it's Cannibal Holocaust in 1980.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which is a grisly, disgusting, horrific nightmare of a film, and I do not recommend you watch it. Yeah,
I'll
real
stick
animals were slaughtered in that movie.
I'll stick to Green Inferno.
Yeah, at least nothing actually happened in that movie. But Cannibal
Yeah.
Holocaust, I watched a turtle get ripped apart, so I'm good.
Yeah. And Cannibal Holocaust doesn't have Junie from Spy Kids, but Green Inferno does.
That's there's another big plus in the
Yeah.
right column. So yeah. Uh, but I love that. Like Welles was so ahead of his time. He
Yeah,
was
that's
putting
insane.
out a found footage film in 1940, and nobody else understood the idea. Like why? Like first off, there weren't really handheld cameras. Like that didn't happen. The camera was on a big mount, and you worked the mount. Like people didn't just hold the camera. That didn't happen.
Maybe he's a time traveler.
I would say that if like he ever did anything else of note outside of like he did Citizen Kane, The Magnificent Ambersons, Touch of Evil, and then like that was that was it. Like he was around, he did like odd jobs and acting roles. He was in the Muppet movie, he was in the Transformers movie, but ultimately he just kind of became a bit of a social outcast and a weirdo.
Hmm. Interesting.
In his final years, he looked like a Russian gangster in a big coat.
He did.
Uh, so he got pretty far into pre-production. He did a day of test shooting with a handheld camera, but the project never reached production because Wells couldn't trim 50 grand from the budget. So the studio was like, you can't lower the budget any more than that. We're not making this movie. They just went like, nope, we're not doing that.
Hmm.
So that's, yeah. I wonder, if he'd made a handheld film in the 40s, I wonder what, like how fast would, we would have gotten something like the Blair Witch Project in like the 60s.
Um, I don't know. Maybe. I'm sure. I don't know about that. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if he had done that, a lot of things would be done like sooner.
If it was a success, if Heart of Darkness had failed, then nobody ever would have like it would have probably found footage would have found its way into Hollywood eventually, but not for a while.
Yeah. Plus Blair Witch wasn't just popular because it was handheld. It was also popular because of the marketing. So
That's true. Yeah, that's true. You can't discount the internet presence with the Blair Witch Project. Yeah, good
Mhm.
point. Um,
Hardcore Henry. Imagine. Sorry. Hardcore Henry is like an actual first person movie. Have you seen it?
I have seen Hardcore Henry. That's quite a movie. I like that stuff. I like found footage horror movies freak me out more than regular horror movies. I don't know what I guess it's just,
Yeah.
it's you feel like you're there. It works.
Yeah. One of the scariest ones, in my opinion, is Creep.
Creep. I get why that freaked people out. I was more annoyed by it.
Well, I mean, he is annoying, but he's also just. I think calm, collected psychopaths are more frightening than just chaotic, screaming psychopaths.
True. That's true. And it's been a minute since I watched Creep. Maybe I need to reevaluate that one. So let's talk about the controversy.
Hmm.
Who wrote Citizen Kane? Authorship of the screenplay has been up for debate for quite some time. Wells conceived the project with screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz, who was writing radio plays for Wells' CBS radio series, The Campbell Playhouse. Mankiewicz based the original outline on the life of William Randolph Hearst, who he knew socially, came to hate after being exiled from Hearst's circle. We see this unfold in Mank. I don't know if that's
Yep.
how it happened, but something happened.
Yeah.
In February 1940, Wells supplied Mankiewicz with 300 pages of notes and put him under contract to write the first draft screenplay under the supervision of John Houseman, Wells' former partner in the Mercury Theater. We meet him in Mank as well. Houseman was a respected writer and actor in his own right, would later win an Oscar for acting for The Paper Chase in the 1980s.
Hmm.
He also is the guy narrating A Christmas Carol in Scrooged.
Huh.
Yeah, love that. Uh, so Wells, obviously, he's had a lot of time to talk about this and think about this, and this is what he said. I left him on his own finally because we'd started to waste too much time haggling. So after mutual agreements on storyline and character, Mank went off with Houseman and did his version while I stayed in Hollywood and wrote mine. So, did they both write their own version of Citizen Kane and combined it into some super draft? Is that what happened? I mean, Wells did have 300 pages of notes that he gave to Mank, and if Mank made a story out of those notes, I get the co-authorship uh, thing.
Yeah. I I mean, as like seedy and gross as Hollywood is, especially in those days,
Mhm.
I would believe that Herman Mankiewicz completely wrote Citizen Kane on his own, but I don't know. Okay, let me ask you this. I don't know a lot about Orson Welles. Was he an asshole?
Well, yes, but here's the thing. It's Hollywood. The rarities are the nice people. Everyone's an asshole.
That's fair. Yeah. I don't know. I could believe both, and to give Orson Welles the benefit of the doubt, he did produce, star in, direct the entirety of the movie. I would not put it past him if he did also co-write it, because again, like there's so much of him in the character
Yeah.
of Citizen Kane, or of Kane, that I I can't just say it was all Herman Mankiewicz.
Well, We're oddly enough, that's actually that condensed that, and that's pretty much what Wells argued. He said, so he took the drafts that Mank gave him, he condensed, rearranged them, added his own scenes. The industry started accusing Wells of underplaying Mankiewicz contribute to the script, and Wells said, at the end, naturally, I was the one making the picture, after all, who had to make the decisions. I used what I wanted of Manx, and rightly or wrongly, kept what I liked of my own.
That's really okay. So sure, right? Maybe Herman Mankiewicz wrote draft one, and then Orson Welles revised it and made the movie. But this is really interesting. Also, we were talking about it before we started filming that for reasons I don't want to get into yet, I've been looking into how to analyze film, and I came across huge controversial topic in the film critic and analyst world, the auteur theory, that really only one person is making the movie and it's their vision. Orson Welles is 100% an auteur. Um, and I actually, so you're gonna think I'm fucking stupid. I just recently found out that John Hughes wrote Home Alone. I didn't know that. I thought it was Chris Columbus 100%, and that's interesting. And I think you know that plays a lot into this Citizen Kane story, because how many directors are we giving credit for? Like, oh, this movie is fucking amazing, and this is their movie. Meanwhile, there is a screenwriter being like, what about me? Screenwriters are the ones writing the stories that we love so much. The directors are just putting it together, you know?
Yeah, very much so. That's why I really don't I don't subscribe to the auteur theory at all. I like these filmmakers who have a very distinct style, and you're watching a David Fincher movie or you're watching a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
Like, you have that. But film is a very collaborative effort. It's not just
Yes.
one man making everything. You've got a director, you got a screenwriter, you got all the actors, you got the editors, the
Mhm.
cinematographer, the fucking caterer. It all works together to make this beautiful piece of art. You need
Yes.
all of that, or you don't get any of it.
Yeah. I don't believe in the auteur theory also. That's why I like film so much. With doing this whole big project we're doing on like art, um, and yeah, I've said film is the greatest form of art there is because it combines so much of it. Um, yeah, the auteur theory is fucking stupid. It's not a real thing. I will agree. I think like certain directors and screenwriters work together because they know how they work,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's great. But after like learning more, like watching Mank, I'm like, Orson Welles is a fucking dick. He stole this from him. But now, like, I'm like, okay, they both worked on it.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I
both of their project.
I think they both knew this was special. They both recognized that this is a story that needs to be told, and it's going to be controversial, and it's gonna hurt Hearst, and he's gonna fight back. They both recognize that. It feels like Citizen Kane was the neglected child in a messy divorce, where both parents were not the best parents and were not looking after the best interest of the child. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, absolutely. They both wanted to be the radical, like, no, no, I'm the one that said fuck you to Hearst. No, no,
Yeah.
I didn't. Oh, I made the best movie ever. You both did, okay? You both made probably, I will agree after seeing it, probably one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah. This is my fourth or fifth time watching Citizen Kane, and every time I watch it, it gets more rewatchable, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm always more into it.
I hope I'm not like the only one. Like the story was good, but that's not the best part of the movie.
No, you're not. I mean,
Okay.
no, there's no film that's universally loved. Everybody, every film is hated by somebody. Just like every film
Cool.
out there is like, somebody's favorite movie, there are people out there who do hate certain favorite, like amazing movies.
I do not in no way hate this movie. I just
Yeah, I know.
it is probably the best movie ever made. You know what I mean?
I get why people would say that. I don't think it's true in the slightest.
No.
But I
Well,
do. I do
Well,
get it.
one
And
of.
for a time, like
Yeah.
this, it's the influence, it's the what it did to the industry, what it did for the industry. I get that. People like Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, Peter Bogdanovich, they watch Citizen Kane and they're like, "Holy shit, I want to do something like that," and they're
Yeah.
inspired to make their own magnum opus. That's the power of films like Citizen Kane.
Yeah. That's like that's why I say it is one of the greatest films ever made because it inspired so much.
Yeah,
It can't not be one of the greats if it didn't have so much power and influence.
yeah. This is what I like to call one of the building blocks. You
Yeah.
know, you trace certain films back far enough, you're going to find the source. Citizen Kane's one of those source films,
Yeah.
and I love the source films. Uh, so this wasn't over. Terms of the contracts that Mankiewicz signed was that he was going to receive no credit for the work as he was hired as a script doctor. And a script doctor does not write the script. Script doctor adds to the script, fixes things. If something doesn't make sense, they, fix it. They add scenes if necessary. They don't receive credit. They are just helpers. And before he signed the contract, Mankiewicz was particularly advised by his agents that all credit for his work belonged to Wells and the Mercury Theater. Wells was the quote author and creator. So Mankiewicz, before he started writing this, he was fully aware of who he was writing this for. So in that, like, if he signed I get that eventually he was like, "This is really good, and I want to be recognized for it." But he signed a contract stating that he
Yeah.
was going to give this away.
He did. He did for sure.
So yeah, as the film neared release, he started having second thoughts. He wanted a writing credit for the film. He threatened to take out full page advertisements in trade papers saying, "I wrote Citizen Kane." And he got his friend Ben Hecht to write an expose for the Saturday Evening Post. He
Oh
also
my
tried
God.
to go to the Screenwriters Guild and claim full credit for writing the script by himself. He was ready to fight Wells tooth and nail.
Oh shit, man.
And I sympathize with Wells here because, like, if I hire a guy to write me a movie and then he's like, "Fuck you, it's my movie," and decides to like just try to rip it out of my hands,
Absolutely. You
I'm gonna.
know, David Fincher made Mank.
Mhm.
He
Yeah,
also made The Social Network. What
yeah,
is it with him and making movies about someone screwing someone else over? You know?
yeah. One of the Letterboxd reviews I didn't bring up because I didn't know. It was a good reference. It was this is the movie about Wells trying to fuck Mankiewicz out of his 0.03%. Love
In
it.
the final scene, Mank walks over to Orson Welles. He goes, "Sorry, my suit's at the dry." What is he? What does he say in the fucking movie?
My Prada's at the cleaners along with my something and my fuck you flip flops. I always forget the middle of it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Fincher, I guess, he sympathizes with stories about assholes cutting people out. He
I
doesn't
wonder
like
if David Fincher was ever cut out of something.
Alien 3, his first film. He was very much shut out of the entire process of that movie. He's
Yikes.
disowned it many times.
Yikes.
He considers his film debut to be Seven, which he made 2 years later. He does not consider Alien 3 to be one of his.
Interesting.
Yeah. Um, so Mank lodged a protest with the Screenwriters Guild, but he later withdrew it. The question was finally resolved, kind of, in 1941 in January when the studio, RKO Pictures, awarded Mank credit. And the Guild credit form listed Wells first, Mank
Oh.
second. Wells' assistant, Richard Wilson, said that the person who circled Mank's name in pencil, then drew an arrow that put it in first place, was Wells himself.
Mm.
Is that true? Or is that some sanctimonious revisionist history? I don't know.
It could be that. Also, you said his agent said that.
His assistant.
I mean, come on. He likes the spotlight. Whatever. Come on.
Yeah, I'm sure Wells probably told his assistant, like, "Hey, make me look good. You're my assistant."
Yeah, and even if he did do that, who fucking cares? It doesn't change anything. You guys still fought over, this movie.
The official credit reads screenplay by Herman J. Mankiewicz and Orson Welles. But Mank just hated Wells forever. What Mank died 12 years later, and during that whole time, it was nothing but daggers and fury at Orson Welles.
Imagine if one of the Coen brothers, one day is like, hey, you know what? I fucking wrote this. Fuck you.
Jesus Christ. Thankfully, they made a pact like from the beginning to share writing and directing credit every time, even if like one of them put more effort into the other. They were just like, we know what we've got.
Mm.
Thank God.
I wonder, like,
More
if
of a
if
Lennon
you're,
and McCartney situation.
I wonder if you can become a Coen fan, like such a big Coen fan that you can tell which brother had more, wrote more of the story,
Damn, to like be like, oh, that's Joel. No, wait, that's Ethan. Holy
Yeah,
shit, that's kind of crazy. That's like, Rain Man level film
yeah.
analysis power. I don't
That'd be crazy. Yeah, no, there's no way. There's no way.
shit, I don't even know if they know. Like they feel like a unit. Like there is, I feel like there is no Joel and Ethan. There's just the Cohen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hold on. Hold on. I want to try this now. What are some Coen brothers that are very similar and not like the other ones?
What do you mean? Like films that are like similar in tone?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them have this ongoing thread of a simple plan goes horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Like Fargo has that, Big Lebowski has that, Raising Arizona has that. Uh, they did that a lot. So I wonder if one of them tackles the comedies and the other tackles the dramas.
Probably. I would be surprised. Yeah.
And they don't really do interviews, so like there's no way to find this shit. That's interesting. I've never written something with somebody. I
Yeah.
wonder how tough that is. Like, sharing writing credit and like I don't know.
I mean, you get credit if you just write and.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I want there's got to be some animosity to, like I put in more work, you wrote 10 pages, I wrote 50 pages, like my name should go first. Uh yeah. So the film came out. William Randolph Hearst tried his darndest to destroy it. He tried to buy it, tried to force RKO to buy up all prints and burn it. But ultimately, Wells won, free speech reigned, Citizen Kane came out, everybody saw it, everybody loved it.
You telling me that he could tell the movie was about him? The very obvious parallel. He could tell.
Well, I think the biggest fuck you to this guy was the fact
Um,
that they named the sled Rosebud. And Rosebud was allegedly Hearst's nickname for his girlfriend's genitals.
oof.
So that, and not a lot of people knew that. So that was a big one where Hearst was like, this motherfucker, this is about me.
Yeah. That was Mank. That was Mank.
That's Mank. 100% that was Mank. I love that. I think that's great. Because the
Yeah.
only way Hearst would be able to fight that is if he admitted that he calls his girlfriend's vagina Rosebud.
My
And that's
God.
weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
Uh, so Kane ended up being a pretty decent hit, grossed 1.8 million on a budget of 839,000, which is significantly higher than that $500,000 cap RKO gave him.
Holy shit, yeah.
I did the math, adjusted for inflation. The budget for Kane, if it was made now, about $17 million. Uh, Profit $38 million.
Hmm.
So not bad, but good for like an Oscar bait holiday movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't be made today.
No. It was nominated for 9 Oscars at the 14th Academy Awards, winning one Best Original Screenplay. Neither Mank or Wells was present. They both didn't go.
Did they both get an Oscar or did just make?
They both got one.
Oh my God. So
I
they had
bet
to make
Mank hated
two.
that.
They had to make two for one award.
Yep. When an Oscar is won, everyone who's nominated for that gets one. So like if the team who did the visual effects is like 6 people, all 6 people get an Oscar.
Oh shit, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's good because otherwise it'd be one guy being like it's mine and they'd be like no it's mine and there'd be like a lot of fights on that
Hmm.
stage.
Yeah.
The film was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Orson Welles, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Art Direction, Best Sound Recording, and Best Original Score. Which you'd think with all the innovations in this movie, it would have taken home a lot of technical stuff.
Yeah, you would. Imagine, imagine if it won Best Screenplay, Best Director, Best Actor.
Dude, Welles just keeps fucking going up there like every time. Just
Yeah.
like, I'd like to dedicate this award to Herman Mankiewicz, like every time.
Yeah.
God. That happened when Parasite won. Bong Joon-ho won like four Oscars personally that night. He kept going up
Oh
and being,
shit.
this is amazing. Like every time he was like, I'm so touched. He walked out of there like cradling a bunch of Oscars.
Well deserved though, I will say.
My favorite, my favorite instance of that was at the 2008 Oscars when No Country for Old Men took home a bunch of Oscars. The Coen brothers won Best Screenplay, a Best Adapted Screenplay. They go up there, they give their speech. Shortly, like a few hours later, they win Best Director, and they go up there and they basically say, "We don't really have anything else to say." They just kind of shrug it and then they leave. You know, but there are people who write like if they're up for 3 or 4 Oscars, they write 3 or 4 speeches just to be safe. Oh. So that's Citizen Kane. Obviously, there's so much more to talk about with Kane. You could do a whole fucking podcast series on Orson Welles and Citizen Kane. Well, we're gonna stop it there and move on to Mank.
Mm.
Mank was officially announced in July 2019 when David Fincher said he would direct the film with Gary Oldman set to star. And the screenplay was written by Fincher's father, Jack Fincher, prior to his death in 2003. He wrote it in the 90s. He was a big fan of old Hollywood. This was originally going to be Fincher's follow-up to The Game in 1997, which is a phenomenal thriller, fantastic movie. And he was going to have Kevin Spacey star with Jodie Foster.
Yikes.
Yeah, Spaceman as Mank and Jodie Foster as Marion. This didn't happen because Fincher insisted on shooting in black and white, and no studio would let him do that because he didn't have the kind of clout to be able to fight for that yet.
That's crazy, like to be like, hey, I want to film this in just not color. And they're like, no.
Yeah, it's weird. Studios, I guess they saw, black and white films don't sell anymore, even though Kevin Smith had just done Clerks, and that was a huge hit. Oh. The 120-page draft of the initial script revealed Jack Fincher closely followed a claim voiced by Pauline Kael in a 1971 New Yorker article called Raising Cain that Welles did not deserve screenwriting credit. So she was the one who started championing Mank and basically pushing Welles out of the credit for Citizen Kane. A lot of critics were angered by this article. Welles's friend, fellow filmmaker Peter Bogdanovich, rebutted these claims point by point in an article he wrote called The Kane Mutiny in October of 1972 for Esquire. Her argument has been discredited by several film scholars over the years. A lot of people see this as revisionist history and a complete lie.
Mm.
So who knows? Mank and Welles are dead. No one can tell us what really happened here.
Well, shit. I didn't know that this movie was so like controversial.
Neither did I. I thought it was pretty straightforward. And the more I looked, the documentary backed it up. So I don't know. It's just one of those Hollywood legends where you pick a side and you just stick with it. Mank producer Eric Roth polished the script prior to filming. David Fincher said he felt early drafts were too anti-Welles. He wanted to make it kind of a little olive branch to the Welles buffs.
Yeah. Well, the movie isn't really even about their feud. It's like the last 10 minutes at most.
Yeah, it's about Mank's process and his, beef with Hollywood and Hearst, which was very real.
Yeah.
It's just that last bit where Welles is like, "You signed a contract," and throws something, and they're Mank's like, "That's gonna go in the movie."
If that interaction really did happen, and the fact that Orson Welles still kept that in the script, and did
Well,
it.
even he agrees. He's like, "You're right." Like he's like in the moment, he's like, "Yeah, damn it, he's right." Um, so when asked about the controversy surrounding the authorship, Fincher stated his movie does not try to settle that issue. It's not like you just said. It's not about that.
Oh,
He said, quote, "It was not my interest to make a movie about a posthumous credit arbitration. I was interested in making a movie about a man who agreed not to take any credit and who then changed his mind. That was interesting to me." Fair enough.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Mank is a fascinating character because, not a lot of people could simultaneously not give a fuck and give so many fucks all at once.
Yeah, I really like um he, that's really what I got from his character is that he cares, but he's self-destructive in the way that he cares.
He cares about everybody except himself.
Yes, exactly. No, he cares about the little man.
Yeah, that's true. He doesn't care. Yeah, he'd give a fuck about hers. But
Mm.
like, yeah, he doesn't like bullies. Comes down to it.
Mm-hmm.
Mank was produced by Netflix, released in the fall of 2020. That year, it was one of the few movies that I wanted to see that I actually got to see because everything got pushed a year because of COVID.
Yeah.
It had a limited theater release, only made 122,000 on a budget of $25 million, but it wasn't considered a failure because I don't know how the hell Netflix measures success, but this was people watched it. It was nominated for 10 Oscars, one more than Citizen Kane. I think
Holy
that's
shit.
insane.
That's
Uh, yeah, the 93rd Academy Awards. It won two, took home Best Cinematography and Best Production Design.
hmm.
Was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Gary Oldman, Best Supporting Actress for Amanda Seyfried, Best Makeup, Best Costume Design, Best Sound, and Best Original Score. Was not nominated for Screenplay.
Uh, that's funny.
Yeah, the mirror there is blowing my mind.
I will say I enjoyed watching Mank more than I enjoyed watching King.
I get that. I get that. Mank is a stylized film, but it's very much a modern film at the same time. Uh, and frankly, it's real, so I think it's a little bit more interesting.
Would you say that like Citizen Kane is the first? Because I was just about to say I love me a good character study, but Citizen Kane is 100% a character study.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't
Was
say
it?
it's the first, but it was definitely new in that it made no secret who it was based on, and like it took on somebody powerful who could
Mhm.
very easily fight back and did. But there had been, character studies have been around ever since people started writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'd argue most of Shakespeare's stuff is character study.
Yeah.
Julius Caesar, Beth, Othello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Mank has an IMDb score of 6.8, Rotten Tomatoes score of 83%, audience score of 63%. Hmm. Critics' consensus reads, sharply written and brilliantly performed. Mank peers behind the scenes of Citizen Kane to tell an old Hollywood story that could end up being a classic in its own right. Hmm.
Absolutely can.
Yeah, I like that. I'm hoping Netflix finally just gives me a goddamn Blu-ray.
Oh,
I'm tired of them just holding all of their original content behind a fucking wall. I
yeah.
mean, some of their stuff has come out. Criterion did versions of The Irishman, Marriage Story. They've got, I think Stranger Things has been released on DVD at some
Yeah.
point. So, like, all or nothing, Netflix, come on.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, they could. They would still make money if they released their originals on Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's still yours. Like, it's not like somebody else is going to make money off. Ah, it's frustrating. Well, with that, let's talk about Mank, the film itself, and talk about some of our favorite bits of this movie. Where would you like to start?
You decide.
Okay.
You,
Let's get music out of the way.
okay. Um,
It's a bouncy score. Was up
it,
for an Oscar, obviously, but I wouldn't say the music is the star of this movie.
no, it's not. There is a couple good ones. I know you'll say the same thing, but I don't have a lot of music right now. So,
Me neither.
it's when he starts kind of going. It's when I think make. It's when he breaks. It's when all of the propaganda films against um oh my god, about Upton Sinclair when they're all out. And it's kind of a jazz piece that kind of goes off the rails at the end. And, he's like covered in sweat and he's like stumbling around trying to like get them taken down. And then it ends with him laughing. But the way that like the music like molds into him laughing and realizing that there's nothing he can do and that he's fucked up. That's a really good piece of music.
Yeah, I have that one written down too. Yeah, that's a good ominous moment of like, what has he done?
Hmm.
And he's almost like he's laughing out of like, I can't believe I did this.
Yeah.
And yeah, that whole subplot just ended in such a tragic way.
Yeah, I did.
Um, I have this the other one I have written down is when Mank towards the beginning of the film just kind of stumbles onto a film set,
Yeah.
starts chatting with Marion Davis, and meets Hearst for the first time, who's there just chilling because his girl is
Mhm.
being used for the movie. And he impresses Hearst. He makes him laugh. And Hearst is like, I want him sitting next to me at the dinner party he just invited him to. And it's this jazzy music of like, hey, Mank's moving up in the world, but is he
Mhm.
really? And
Yeah, it's like jazzy music, but it has like some like darker, you know, there's some sinister music cues in there, which is interesting.
I agree. Let's look into the score a little bit here. Who made it? The music here is done. Oh, it's fucking Trent Reznor as Atticus Ross, of course. It's the Fincher A Team, Social Network,
Yeah.
Girl with Dragon Tattoo. Like those guys are
Yep.
fucking geniuses.
They are. I think so there's two well there's I think there's three kinds of music scores. There's ones that like we don't really care about and not to talk about, that not a great score. There's one that really stands out like on its own merit that we can sit here and talk about for a long time. But then there's
Mm.
the other type, which is my favorite. It's the one that you can't really talk about because it's not a great score on its own, but together it adds so much to the film. You know what I mean? Like it just adds the mood to the scene.
Yeah, it's like seasoning for the movie. It's adding flavor in all the right spots. It's doing what it needs
Yeah.
to do. It's not standing out too bad, but it's reinforcing the moments it needs to reinforce.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Let's do performance. So,
Um, yeah. I wonder who we're both gonna say.
I mean, my impulse is to give this to Gary Oldman,
Yeah.
but I gotta say Tom Burke as Orson Welles.
Yeah, he is so good. He looks identical. He sounds identical. His mannerisms, everything, top notch.
I had forgotten how fucking amazing he was in this. I guess watching Citizen Kane right beforehand helped because I
Yeah.
had Orson Welles on my mind. That was pretty remarkable. He's not in the movie a lot. I think it would have been cool if he got a supporting actor nomination, but here we are.
Yep.
Uh, but this is Oldman's movie. He's doing a fantastic job as Herman Mankiewicz, just playing this kind
Yeah.
of court jester as they call him.
Mhm.
Uh,
I said Gary Oldman just because he's first of all just his fucking range. He can play Zorg in Fifth Element. He can play fucking Sirius Black in Harry Potter, Commissioner Gordon, and then fucking Herman Mankiewicz, screenwriter at the end of his rope. He's an alcoholic, broken leg. He's just so sick and tired of how corrupt Hollywood is and how political it is.
yeah. Gary Oldman, I read an article that said that he's never used the same accent twice in any movie, apart from like, sequels and whatnot. But every time he plays a character, they've got a different, slightly unique, like a unique voice to them. And that's pretty amazing.
Mhm.
I also read he did Zorg as a favor. Like he didn't really put anything
Yeah,
in it.
that's insane.
Zorg is him not trying.
That's fucking insane. That's crazy. Honorable mention here, fucking Bill Nye the Science Guy plays
I
Upton Sinclair for like 5 seconds.
have no idea why. Uh, but it's awesome. You
We
know?
were sitting there watching it, and the first time you see Upton Sinclair, it's like he's kind of far away, and then he turns his head slightly, and I was like, "That's fucking Bill Nye," and you were like, "No, it's not." I was like, "Yes, it fucking is. It's Bill Nye the Science Guy."
I would, yeah, because in the moment I'm like, why the fuck would Bill Nye the Science Guy be in the David
Yeah.
Fincher movie about Herman Mankiewicz? But I looked it up and yeah, he is. Ah, so Amanda Seyfried was the other person from this cast who got nominated.
Oh yeah.
She's good. I don't think the character really gets a lot to do. She's just kind of there.
Yeah.
Uh, I also felt Charles Dance was pretty wasted as Hearst. I wanted to see more of him.
Yeah, with good casting, not a lot to do. Fuck, you get fucking Tywin Lannister to play a mogul. That's a wonderful casting. I wish he had done more. Just cool to see though.
Yeah, the bit where he's telling Mank the parable of the organ grinder's monkey as he's very subtly escorting him off his property is
Yes.
so haunting.
Yeah. So, yeah, because that takes place right after basically Mank, like you said when we were watching it, he basically pitches the idea for Citizen Kane right in front of Hearst. And Hearst is escorting him out, and he's like, "You're not wrong. I agree, but don't ever fucking say that shit again."
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a complex relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Hank just did that with people. He didn't care who he offended as long as he got his point across. And he made so many enemies.
Yeah, he does. We have a lot of quotes, especially from him, of just one-liners, zingers that he says to fuck with people. Like one of my favorite. Okay, well, I'll talk about it when we get to scene.
Let's go there now. Let's go, or actually let's go to line. That gives us an opportunity to shoot out some of these one-liners.
Okay, yeah.
What do you got?
Um, I'll let you talk about the biggest mind-blowing line ever because I know that's your favorite line in cinema. I'll let you do that.
It's
Uh,
one of them. Yeah, we'll get to that.
um, he doesn't say it. I think Wells says it to him. I fucking didn't write down who said it. I wrote down the line. Someone says to Mank, he says, "With all the world a stage and you are their Shakespeare." That was such a brilliant line.
I I remember that. That might have been Wells.
I think it was Wells who says that to Mank. Yeah.
Yeah, early on in the movie. Um, I love one little thing Mank just says to. I think he says this to Wells on the phone when he hires him for Kane. He says, "I am as your servant Moses, though I won't work half as cheap."
Yes, yes, that was good. I saw every time I saw you whip out your phone, I was like, yeah, he's writing that down for the boy.
How do you not? It's
Um,
just like such a just fantastic screenplay.
um, one of the great lines that he says is during the election party, and he says, "Irving, you are an illiterate man. You know the difference between communism and socialism. In socialism, everyone shares the wealth. In communism, everyone shares the poverty." And he fucking says that to one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, in the country at that point. It's insane, man.
I will never understand how Herman Mankiewicz was able to fit his trousers around the enormous pair of balls he had down there.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Goddamn. I love it's a very simple line, but it's very, true. But I love the way that you can kind of think about Citizen Kane in this light. Herman says, you cannot capture a man's entire life in 2 hours. All you can hope is to leave the impression of one.
Hmm.
It's true. That's what biopics do. You can't tell a person's entire life in that span, but you can kind of get the gist and let you know who they were most of the time.
Yeah. Um, he has another one. I don't, I don't know which one I want to say. I have two more that I want to say. Okay, I'll go with the funny. Well, I'll go with the little more poignant one first, and then I'll get the funny one. Um, he's talking to Irving Dahlberg, and because he's asking for donations. He's like, "Hey, do you want to like donate? So we can get people jobs." And Herman says, "Irving, you are the shrewdest executive in this town. Why are you acting like some dumb hard healer? You don't need my donation. You don't need anybody's. You have everything it takes right here. And that encapsulates everything I love about this about Herman Mankiewicz because he's so fucking sick and tired. Like when I go to like like Starbucks, Pandex, like anywhere, there was like, "Do you want to donate? You want to round up to St. Jude's? You don't fucking need my donation. You are a $1 billion company. If you want to donate, donate. You don't need my fucking money."
Yeah, that irritates me too, especially like, I am the poor. Like,
Yes,
what am I
yes,
doing? Like, I can't, like, you guys can afford it.
exactly.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Oh man.
Uh, one of my absolute favorites is the final line of the movie where Mank gets to do his, if Mank had attended the Oscars, what he would have said. And it's, I am happy to accept this award in the manner in which the screenplay was written, in the absence of Orson Welles.
Mhm. That's great. Even if you believe that they both wrote it, that's still what if the balls to say that.
I wish to God Mank had gone to that show and he'd said that in front of Hollywood.
Mm.
God, that would have been beautiful.
Just a
Oh,
funny line I like that he says about Louis B. Mayer, Louis B. Mayer, Louis, whatever,
Louis, Louis.
Louis B. Mayer. He says, "If I ever go to the electric chair, I'd like him to be sitting in my lap." After you telling me how awful that man is, I 100% agree.
Yeah, Louis B. Mayer is one of the biggest pieces of shit who ever walked through the gates of Hollywood.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm sure he's looking up at us right now, seething.
Yeah.
Yeah, just look him up. I've ranted about Mayer so many times on this podcast, especially through the Oscar Sunday run. Whenever we tackle a movie from the 40s, especially The Wizard of Oz, I think I went off on his ass the most in that episode. So go
Oh
check
yeah.
that. Uh, and he happens to say my favorite line in this movie and one of the greatest movie quotes in history because it really makes you think about the entire fucking industry. And it's actually tied with my favorite scene, so we can kind of just transition organically. Uh, Louis given Joe and Herman Mankiewicz a tour of the MGM studio, lets them know exactly how things work here. There's only one star at MGM. That's Leo the Lion. Many other stars have thought differently, and they twinkle elsewhere. I love that.
Hmm.
The whole bit about, people think MGM stands for Metro Goldwyn Mayer, but it actually stands for like Mayer's Ganza Mashpuka, like some Yiddish word, like Mayer's whole family. Like, you got a
Right.
problem? Come to Papa. Like, he's
Mm-hmm.
he's so full of shit. This
Hmm.
fucking yes man, like, you goddamn right. But what he says about the movie business blows my fucking mind. He says, "This is a business where the buyer gets nothing for his money but a memory. What he bought still belongs to the man who sold it. That's the real magic of the movies, and don't let anybody tell you different." Whew.
Yeah. I think like when he said that, I was speechless. I looked at you and I was like, "Holy
I
shit!"
remember you were like, "Fuck!" Like, that hit you hard.
Yeah, like changed my life right there.
It's true. You're not buying anything when you buy a
Yeah,
movie. You're buying an experience that you
yeah,
can either have or not have depending on you completely.
exactly.
It's so insane and subjective and hard to quantify, but we all kind of get it.
Hmm.
It's, yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. What other scenes you got?
I it's not like a it has no meaning, but it's just so funny. It's when they go to the election party and I think it's his wife says, "If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all." And then for like the next like 3 minutes of the movie, anytime someone talks to Herman Mankiewicz, he just makes facial expressions. He's completely silent because he's gonna say some snarky, sarcastic shit.
Yeah, he said, Gary Oldman in that bit, just he says so much with his face. Just
Yeah.
you can tell exactly what he's thinking every time someone talks about communism or about that leftist crazy man Upton Sinclair. He just is like, he just
Yeah.
wants to, ah, yeah, it's great. That whole scene is crazy when he just like doubles down his gambling debt on Sinclair, and his
Yeah.
wife's like, Like she's so over this shit.
Yeah, it's a well, yeah, it is a rough scene to watch though, because I think like you said when we were watching, like how many times has she had to deal with him saying something that got them in trouble?
Yeah, I kept thinking like, why does she stay with him? And it really boils down to like, you know, divorce was weird back then. You tough through it. You married who you married, and you just ran with it. And I'm sure she did
Yep.
love him,
Oh
but I think
yeah.
she loved the artist inside the man,
Hmm.
and the man was a goddamn train wreck.
Yeah, he was.
Ah, um, I love we touched on it already, but the dinner party where Mank makes an ass of himself and just straight up pitches the tale of a modern day Quixote,
Hmm.
very not subtly talking about Hearst.
Yep.
And as he talks about it, we the audience start realizing, oh, that's Kane. And it's brilliant. And even, completely lit off his ass, the guy's the smartest man in the room, who,
Absolutely.
yeah, he never forgets what he says when he's drunk. I don't know, was that in the movie or was that in the documentary I watched today?
I think it might have
Uh,
been in the documentary.
yeah, that was a nice touch. Like he was often drunk, but he never forgot what he saw or said when he was drunk,
Mm.
which is a pretty awesome skill.
Yeah, right.
Still
Yeah.
trap, still trap. Uh, but
Um,
yeah, great scene.
it's a small scene, but I like in the very first flashback when we see him with his with his people in the office. They're talking about making. I think you said they're talking about making a monster movie. But just like the camaraderie between like his team and like shows that he actually does care about making film, not about politics, about making a good film. I really like that scene when I don't know, they were flipping coins or something and they were laughing and joking. It's a cute scene.
Yeah, I love when they go to pitch this movie and they haven't written down shit, and this off
Yeah.
the top of their head they're like, he's a monster hated by society, but he wants to change, and like Mank ends it with like, you need a sequel, and they're like, nah, B picture, like we don't want it. Like sometimes, being in a pitch room and just shooting ideas looks like fun shit
Yeah,
sometimes.
it does.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we kind of think the podcast gets a little stale and we're starting to talk about, ideas we can spice things up, that's what it feels like. We're just kind of tossing around like, well, what if we try this? Well, what if we do that?
Mhm.
How about we try this? Like,
Yeah,
that's fun. When you have
it
something
is.
you care about and you just want to make it better, it's the best.
Mm. It really is, yeah.
Um, I do love the final confrontation where Mank tells Wells like, I want credit and I'm
Yeah.
gonna fight for it, and Wells acts like a fucking 5-year-old who's like, no, it's mine.
Yeah. And then he's like, that needs to be in the movie right there.
Yeah, he is just he played. I don't know if Wells had kids or like if he's got like if there's somebody controlling the estate right now. I doubt it. I don't think they'd let that version of Wells exist in film today
Mm.
because he does not come across as a professional. He comes across as a petulant child who got his favorite toy taken away.
Yep.
Uh, but it's great for the movie.
Yeah, it really is.
Huh, well, that wraps it up for me. You got anything else you want to spotlight?
For Mank, um, no. It just I will say I do like the way that the movie itself was filmed. It was filmed basically like it honestly kind of was like a sequel to Kane in a weird way.
It's a good companion piece. It's a good.
Yeah.
If you're gonna double feature anything with Citizen Kane, this is the one.
Hmm.
And that's because Fincher went out of his way to secure like cameras and well, not cameras, but sound equipment that they would have used in the 40s. He used modern day cameras, but he shot it in black and white, so there is no color version of this film.
Wow.
Pretty sweet. Well, with that, let's see what the folks on Letterboxd have to say about this
Oh boy.
on our final segment. What's in the box?
What's in the fucking box? Give me the gun.
Mank has a 3.3 out of 5. really good. But not everybody likes this movie. A lot of people, one guy especially, was like, Orson Welles wrote it. It is documented that Orson Welles wrote it. Like he gave like a 3-page essay about how Mankiewicz is full of shit and deserves no credit for Kane. It was weird. It was like Orson Welles came back from the grave to possess this guy and write a quick essay. Uh, I don't have his because I don't want to read that much. So here is James Shifrillis. Why the fuck is no one talking about the fact that Bill Nye the Science Guy played
Yes!
Sinclair in this movie? 4 stars.
Yes! Thank you. Oh my god. That's such a weird. Has he been in any other movies like at all?
Not that I know of. I can't recall ever seeing him outside of seventh grade science class, so I
God.
don't know.
Imagine, hey Bill, I know that you usually teach seventh graders in science. How do you feel about being a socialist leader in my movie about Citizen Kane?
Inertia is a property of matter. Um, anyway, I have that whole. It's all still in my head. So much Bill Nye. Can you watch that? Like, is that streaming anywhere? Can you watch it as a show?
I'm sure you can find it somewhere. Yeah.
I feel like that exclusively existed in like DVDs for teachers. I'm looking it up right now. Fuck the podcast. I want to find out if you can watch Bill Nye the Science Guy.
I could see that though. You being like, inertia is a property of matter. Okay, Bill, your line was
Your line was, oh, that's great. Yeah, evidently you can watch it. You can rent it on Prime for $2 an episode, which seems steep.
oof.
But I'm sure there's, clips all over YouTube. It ran for 5 years, 5 seasons. I didn't know there was that much science to talk about. Anyway, back to our
One of them he
regular
talks about
program.
in one of the seasons. It's all about socialist ideals and shit.
That was the last episode. There was no season 6 once Bill Nye started talking about socialism.
Oh god.
Uh, speaking of canceled, this one's from Sophie. Good, but not quite good enough to justify putting Mindhunter season 3 on hold, which led to its cancellation. David, 4 stars.
Did David Fincher write Mindhunter? Is that his?
That was his show. He was show running that. He wrote and directed a lot of it, and then he put a third season on hold to do Mank, and it took so long that Netflix and Fincher eventually, like Fincher decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and Netflix canceled it.
What the fuck? I haven't seen Mindhunter, but how do you just cancel a show like that?
Mindhunter is so good. That's the worst part. It was so good,
Really?
and season 3 looked promising, but we're never getting it. It was about the origins of the FBI behavioral science unit and serial killer.
What?
It was fantastic. They would interview. So these two guys went across the country interviewing real serial killers and hearing their stories so they could figure out how profiling worked and, understand the killers. And it's based on a book where they actually use the real transcribed meetings with these killers and verbatim put it in the show. And it's so, it's fucking great. They talk to Charles Manson, they talk to Ed Kemper, they talk to Richard Speck, like Jerry Brudos, like the craziest motherfuckers in the prison system.
Is it like
It's
a creepy
ridiculous.
show?
Yeah, it's pretty creepy at times. Throughout the whole thing, the BTK killer is like murdering, and it's hinted they're going to go after him eventually once they, get on their radar. But of course, we're never going to know, are we? Season 3 didn't happen.
Oh shit, dude.
Yeah.
I want to watch that now.
It was great. 2 seasons on Netflix. It's worth it. Regrettably, we will not get more, but it's a solid 2-season run.
Hmm.
This next one is from Lily. Pretty sure this is David Fincher's way of saying that if he had a time machine, he would beat the shit out of Orson Welles. 2.5 stars.
Only the last 5 minutes is that.
It is. People really got, like, they're hung up on that part of the movie. Like,
They really are.
it's. I don't know. And this last one's from Dave Horwitz. I feel like Mank is my punishment for being too into movies. 1 star.
Why?
Interesting way to think about it. because I don't know. I'm trying to think of a movie that was like my punishment. Probably Federico Fellini's 8.5. But or Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. There are worse movies out there for film buffs to have to watch.
Yeah, there are.
Oh, well, I hope. What was your name again? Uh, Dave Horwitz. I hope you watched something you liked today. This was a blast. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like the show, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Filmgazm Productions. If you want to suggest films for us to check out, you can email us at filmgazm@gmail.com or send us a message through the socials. Check out our Letterboxd accounts for daily reviews. You search for me at Connor95, and in my friends list, you can find the rest of the team. Check out the website, filmgazm.com, where I have a link to that letterbox. You can also find articles, trailers of upcoming films, and every episode of our show. If you'd like to become a monthly donor to Filmgazm Productions, click on the link in the episode description. From there, click on Support This Podcast. You can choose to donate $1 a month, $5 a month, or $10 a month, and all donations go right back into the show. Thanks to the entire Filmgazm team for their contributions. Thanks to Cooley Cow for our awesome theme music. Thanks to you for checking it out. Well, that's our show. Remember to always fight for your art and never compromise your integrity. Take it easy. Keep watching movies, and we'll see you next time.